Fabulous. Hello, lovely people. I'm Diane Danzebrink, founder of Menopause Support, the Menopause Support Network group on Facebook, and of course of the hashtag Make Menopause Matter campaign, which if you haven't signed yet, I would love you to go to change.org and do that today. So in another of the series of understanding menopause and all the aspects of, I have with me today my lovely friend, Sam Evans, and Sam's going to introduce herself, but essentially we've been trying to do this for about 2 years.
Yeah.
So Sam's going to introduce her, and then we're going to talk all things pelvic health, vaginas, vulvas, how to keep them healthy, etc, etc. So go on, lovely, over to you. Tell us all about you and what you do.
Okay. So, hello, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So I'm Sam Evans and I'm the co-founder with my husband Paul of online sex toy retailer Joe Devine. And my background is nursing. So the website, we sell only skin safe products and sexual lubricants, which means they don't contain irritating ingredients, and that we only sell products that are made from silicone, glass, metal or hard ABS plastic. And also the website has about 400 sexual health and pleasure articles, majority of which I've written, though we've got some new writers now, which is very exciting. And we've also got videos too. So for me, it's actually a matter of offering practical sexual health and pleasure advice so that you can enjoy sexual intimacy and pleasure with your partner when sexual health issues arise during the menopause or perimenopause, or or beyond menopause as well. So that's basically about me and what we do.
So we're going to talk about all things pelvis, all things vagina and vulva in this one, and then we're going to go on to talk about sexual pleasure in the second one. But out of interest, so as Sam said, her website is a fantastic source of information, but I know that you do a lot of sort of unofficial telephone consultations, so people who are calling maybe to inquire about products, find out what is sort of the right thing for them. I'm just really interested to know, because it's a question I've never asked you, what's the most common things that you get asked?
Generally, we advertise in women's magazines.
Yeah.
So often women will have spotted our advert and they're phoning up to buy their first sex toy, but the advert actually says about vaginal tightness, how the product can help.
Yeah.
So it was actually as a result of the adverts, which is why I started writing, because I realised that our customers are asking us about vaginal tightness, about vaginal dryness, about post-surgical problems with their vagina, menopause, so that basically is, one of the things why women generally phone up, but often it's because they're having a problem, or they've had surgery, or they no longer have a partner, but they still want to keep things viable, or they want to go and have a smear test, and actually things have got a bit small down there, and the tissues of the vagina have shrunk a bit with, vaginal atrophy, the depleting estrogen, and so it's actually making having a smear test feel uncomfortable, and using a slim sex toy can really help that.
So that's one of the first things. So on the Menopause Support Network, that's one of the things that comes up quite regularly, is this idea of women actually being scared to go for their smear test because they've experienced dryness, soreness generally, or their last smear test was painful. So that's one of the things. So could you talk us through what women can do to help themselves and the sort of things that they could use to ensure the kind of continued health?
So one of the first things we always say is actually speak to your GP practice, speak to your GP, speak to the practice nurse, and tell them that actually, you're really worried that it's going to feel uncomfortable or painful, or you've noticed that it's got smaller down there, or you've noticed that there's pain during sexual intercourse if you're still with your partner, and that's the first most important thing to do. And then from a practical point of view, I always say to women, take your own sexual lubricant with you. We're fans of Yes Organic lubricant because it doesn't contain irritating ingredients. That includes glycerin, glycols and parabens. There's a water-based formulation which is very close to your natural lubrication, and that's perfectly fine to take to your smear test, because...
And that's not going to interfere with the results of the smear, because that's something that is said by doctors and nurses to women very often.
Yeah, and my viewpoint is, quite frankly, no lubricant, no smear test.
Yeah.
Because it is not fair to women to expect them to have this plastic speculum put inside their vaginas without any lubrication. The lubricants that they use in the NHS actually contain irritating ingredients.
Yeah.
So often if you've got vaginal atrophy or you've already got a sensitive vagina or vulva, it can cause irritation, which is why I say take the water-based lubricant. I take my Yes Organic lubricant. And also if they use the lubricant not at the end of the speculum, so
Yes.
it's not going to interfere
Yep.
with that sample taking.
Mm-hmm.
I've had long conversations with my practice nurse and she agrees with me. She said that she would never dream of doing a smear test without using some sort of lubricant.
Ah, interesting.
But there are different people.
But it's not everybody doesn't think the same way,
No,
unfortunately,
exactly.
do they?
So that's a really good tip, to take your lubricant, but make sure that it's water-based. I mean, the most important thing is you're using a good lubricant. So
can you just explain, Sam? You very briefly said about the parabens, the glycols, etc., etc. Can you just explain a little bit more about what, if people are looking to buy a lubricant or a moisturiser for that matter, what they should be looking for and what they should be avoiding and why?
Okay, so I'll quickly say about my own personal experience. So in my 20s and 30s, I experienced a lot of vaginal infections. So thrush, bacterial vaginosis, that's the discharge that smells very fishy and you need antibiotics for it. I had urinary tract infections, I had cystitis, and basically these things kept happening whenever I had sex. So then I developed vaginismus, is whereby the muscles of the vagina tighten up involuntarily, makes penetration feel very painful. Because of these infections, because I kept thinking, I'm going to get an infection, I'm going to have thrush tomorrow, I'm going to be on the loo all night with cystitis.
And out of interest, from a kind of psychological point of view, and from the point of view of how you then viewed sexual intimacy with your partner or husband, whoever it was at the time, how did that impact you?
It really impacted, because you're so frustrated with your body. I wanted to have sex. And I loved it. It was my husband Paul, I've been with him for 28 years.
Yeah.
And, sex was good some of the time, but we actually had started using lubricant because we never had sex without it. And Paul had always used lubricant, but we were using KY Jelly and other well-known lubricant brands.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that the ingredients in these products were causing the thrush. So, thrush, bacterial vaginosis. So thrush loves a sugary environment, and a lot of lubricants contain glycerin. That's what makes it sort of feel a little bit tacky.
Yeah.
And so, some people are fine with a product that's got glycerin. Majority of lubes will have glycerin in them. The next thing is glycols, and they are well-known irritants. They irritate the tissues of the vagina. There's research out there that actually shows that actually causes this irritation. And that's often when people put on a lubricant, they go, oh, that stung a bit. And it's not just women, it's their male partners too. They'll often find that the tissues of the penis are actually being irritated too. And actually when couples have experienced that, it puts them off using a lube.
Yeah.
So then they don't use a lubricant, but sex continues to be painful. So basically, I've done a lot of research in this area because of my own experience. It was discovering Yes Organic lubricants when we set up the company 12 years ago, switched to the lubricants, and I suddenly realised I'm not getting these infections anymore. And then the vaginismus slowly disappeared. I have to say it reared its ugly head as I hit menopause, but I learned to control that now, and I use local estrogen and vagina moisturiser, the Yes Vagina Moisturiser, which really helps. And I've got ways of coping with that. And when it does strike, then we don't have penetrative sex, but there's other things we can do.
Yeah, yeah,
so,
absolutely. Absolutely.
But so the rule of thumb is basically check the label, but actually not all lubricants have the ingredients on them, which is quite frustrating.
Oh, really?
No, and there's some well-known brands out there that don't actually have the ingredients on them.
So there's no sort of stipulation to ensure that they... But that's interesting.
Yeah. So basically when people, and often the thing that we discovered is when people say they're allergic to condoms, it's actually the lubricant on the condom. But again, condom brands don't have to say what's in the lubricant.
Ah, okay.
So I've had this conversation recently with a lot of people. So, and they're actually going, actually that makes sense. It's probably true. Also, condoms aren't well lubricated and that actually causes irritation too. So for me, I've written extensively on the website, but basically, is your sexual lubricant causing thrush? So it's glycerin, glycols, and then parabens, which appear in so many products, but they are estrogenic. We really should be avoiding putting them in our bodies. Yeah. The other thing to say as well is with water-based lubricants, it's to do with the osmolarity. So basically, the higher osmolarity that a product has, it actually exacerbates vaginal dryness because it draws the moisture out of the walls of the vagina, and it actually it doesn't lock in the moisture, and actually short term it might work, like KY jelly. I mean, there's so many well-known brands out there that are hyperosmotic.
Yeah.
But you won't know this because it's not going to be put on a tube of
No,
lube.
no, of course not.
So, those are the things that we always say, be careful. And then obviously natural things like, olive oil, coconut oil, people quite like to use those. We can eat them, therefore must be safe for our vaginas. But actually, the research isn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
And if personally, it's choosing a lube that works for you, but if you know you've got a sensitive vagina or vulva, if you know that you're prone to thrush or irritation or bacterial vaginosis, you've got vaginal atrophy, then be really careful about what you're putting inside yourself.
So, as organic and natural as possible?
Well, again, for me, it's always looking at the ingredients, because actually, you can think, oh, this is a fabulous product, and then you'll spot this, propylene glycol, or you'll spot glycerin, and again, flavoured lubricants, great for oral sex, but I wouldn't recommend them for penetrative sex because again, they've got sugars in them for the flavouring. So again, that's another thing too. So and the ones that warm you up and cool you down. So the ones that warm you up have got what you would find in chilies. Not like you, I don't rub a chili.
No.
Myself. And the ones that cool you down have got menthol. So again, it's a matter of doing a skin test, getting a sample, do a skin test. Don't just slap it
and
on.
it's a delicate pH balance,
yes,
isn't it?
very much so. So
sort of within that environment.
So basically 3.8 to 4.5, and the problem is a lot of lubricants are not within that pH.
Yeah.
As soon as you disrupt that pH inside the vagina, that will make you more prone to getting thrush or bacterial vaginosis, in particular bacterial vaginosis.
Yeah.
So it just disrupts it, and it's the same with any feminine hygiene products, which I harp on about all the time, and perfume, bath bombs. We've come across perfume condoms, perfume menstrual products.
Right.
Everything and anything that's been thrown at our vaginas and vulvas on the high street and online. We really need to be careful about what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So good advice. So I'm kind of taking from that your sort of line is no lube, no smear test.
Yes. That's my view as well.
Fair
no
enough.
lube, no sex. My husband knows that. So.
Fair enough, lovely. So the other thing that I've spoken to, for those of you who have watched my videos with Jane Lewis, the other thing that I've spoken to Jane about are the local estrogens. Yes. And I know that you're a big fan of, kind of using the two together. No reason not to use a vaginal estrogen and a good lubricant together.
Yeah, basically, I mean, personally for me, I use Vagifem, which has got a little tiny pessary in there, and I use that 3 times a week. The general rule is that you start off with a 2-week loading dose, use it for 14 days, and then you go down to two days a week. But actually, you can go up to 5 days a week. It depends on you. And I was actually advised, because I was getting bacterial vaginosis by my GP, to actually go up to 3 times a week. So 3 times a week, I pop in this, and then basically I use the Yes Vaginal Moisturiser. Again, that's all pH balanced, and it doesn't contain the...
So can you talk a little bit about, we've talked about the lubes, can you talk a little bit about, so obviously the lube is for sex, whatever that means, whether that's intercourse, whether that's solo, with etc. But what about the moisturiser? So how often would you recommend using it?
Well, generally, I mean, some women use the vaginal moisturiser every day.
Right.
They might use it externally on the vulva. I use the applicator just because it's easy. I use that twice a week.
Right.
So, and I don't use it on the same days as I'm using my topical, my local estrogen.
Okay.
Just because you want the local estrogen, because it's a little tablet, you want to make sure it sticks.
Yeah.
But so I've literally, I'm probably two days a week that I'm actually not putting anything inside my vagina.
Okay. Fair enough.
But to say about the local estrogen, and I know you've talked about with Jane, but this is where women are really worried. This is equivalent, using it twice a week is the equivalent of taking 1 HRT tablet a year.
Yeah.
It is such a minuscule amount of HRT, and actually it's only being absorbed into the walls of the vagina, it's not being absorbed into the bloodstream.
Yeah, so it's not systemic,
and
essentially.
I speak to women on the phone and they're telling me they've got these vaginal problems, and they're phoning up for a slim sex toy, and I tell them about lubricants, but then I discover they've already got a box of Vagifem or some, estrogen cream at home, but they're not using it because they're really worried. So if you are worried, I would go back to your GP and have a chat with them. But obviously on your website there's loads of information as to, why these are really, really beneficial. Just to help that vagina health. For me, it has transformed my vagina health from using the organic lubricants to the vaginal moisturiser and the local estrogen, because I know that I already have a sensitive vagina which was destroyed by using KY jelly in my 20s and 30s. You know, which is now I've managed to get it back to good health, and it's happy and healthy most of the time.
And what effect has that had on your mental health, Sam? I'm always interested in that, obviously from the therapeutic point of view. Being able to take control of it again, how has that helped you?
I think for me it's actually that connection with my pelvis. So basically when I was having the vaginismus and all the infections, you know, your heart just sinks when you're sitting on there thinking, God, it's cystitis again, or I'm itching, it's thrush. You know, I had no help from medical professionals other than iron the gusset of my knickers to kill the thrush bacteria. Which
iron
them? Because everybody irons the gusset of their knickers, don't they? I've got time to do that.
It's not funny, but...
He was a consultant gynaecologist I no longer see at my local hospital.
Shocking.
Yes, but I had nobody asked me about my sex life, to tell you the truth. But talking about my mental health, it basically, your heart sinks when you feel like that, and also with the vaginismus, and again, occasionally my husband can tell when it's happening during sex. Yeah. So we will stop, but we don't sort of, you know, disconnect, and I'll just take time to breathe. Yeah. I visualise a lotus flower opening up. That's my thing of doing it. Yeah. And then we start, but we know, we sort of, you know, it's not hard and fast. We just make sure we go slowly. And I'll say to him, if it does hurt, I'll say, can we stop? And that's perfectly fine. Yeah. And, you know, it's really important to have that communication. Yeah. Don't have sex if it feels painful. No, you know, there is no point, because actually it's not going to feel, you're not going to be aroused, your libido will plummet, you know, because you'll actually then, you won't want to have sex because you'll be viewing it as the fact of it's going to hurt. Yeah, absolutely. So quickly going back to the smear test, the other thing you can do, women do actually buy, we've got a little slim vibrator here called the Slinky Pinky. Okay. It's really sweet. And it's a really nice one of sort of trying, it's a good sort of first step into trying to open up the vagina, so you're actually stretching it. Because it vibrates as well, it will stimulate the blood flow inside the vagina, so it promotes the health of the vagina. Also it helps with stimulation. Obviously you can use it externally on your clitoris as well to feel pleasurable, but it's a great way of sort of starting to feel a bit more relaxed. Or you can use the dilator kit here, which is the 5 dilators, and women will use these and work their way up from the little. And these are much kinder, aren't they, than the hard plastic? They are. I mean, they're skin safe silicone, and you know they're completely flexible. Ones. Yeah. Easy to clean. They're non-porous, so you know they're not going to absorb bacteria. Great to use with a little bit of the oil-based lubricant. We often recommend that because that's quite nourishing to the tissues. But you know, it's non-threatening, and also the Slinky Pinky can fit through the handle. Turn it on, it then turns this into a vibrating dilator. Handy little tip. So we've got a lot of healthcare professionals recommending these to their patients. Yeah. But it's for those people who are really trying to, you know, get back to having a smear test that feels comfortable, or get back to penetrative sex as well. So okay. So all good tips for good pelvic health. Anything else, Sam, that you're sort of, when you're talking to people about their pelvic health, particularly, that you sort of you like to share with them? One of the things I say to women when they're telling me they're experiencing painful sex or they can't have a smear test, I always ask them, have they been to see a women's health physiotherapist? I work with an awful lot of women's health physiotherapists. They are the experts in our pelvic health. They also work in men's pelvic health as well, quite a few of them. These are healthcare professionals who have been trained within the women's health speciality to assess your pelvic floor. A lot of women, we're told to do our pelvic floor exercises, but we're never really taught how to do them properly, and we can actually end up tightening the pelvic floor, which then causes problems. Over tighten, yeah. And actually some women have this hypertonic pelvic floor. Jane's talked about it. Yeah. And actually that makes smear tests and penetration feel really, really quite painful. So I always say to women, if you can, get your GP to refer you to your local hospital, or if you can, you know, would like to find a private one, I have a list of therapists that are physios that I can actually recommend, you know, that I work with. That I know. Have you seen one, Sam, over the years? Have you seen a? No, I haven't actually. But actually, when I go and talk to them, they talk to me, you know, about the pelvic floor. And actually, I was at a talk recently. It's the physio we created our women's health brochure with at our local hospital, and she had. It's the first time I'd seen it. It was actually a pelvis. And I'd never seen the structure of all the muscles. Oh, and it completely made sense. And it was like, you know, and I have to say, whenever I meet with these physios, I'm like doing my pelvic floor exercise. It's like, I don't know what it is. I actually met with somebody the other day, actually, when I was at another talk, and it was like, yeah, I'm doing my pelvic floor exercises, but I've learnt how to do them properly. I've learnt how to engage. I mean, I've used in the past. Some people like to use pelvic floor exercises. These are like weighted balls, Kegel exercises.
Okay. How do these work?
Basically, they're different weights, and you can sort of, just pop in the two if you can manage it. You can just pop in one. It's got a little clay ball inside it, so that rattles around while you're either walking the dog, doing your shopping, doing your exercise class. Pop them in for a couple of hours a day. It engages the pelvic floor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different ones as well, because these are sort of quite small ones as well, so people prefer those. But I really think it's important to be taught how to do your pelvic floor exercises properly.
Yes.
And there are really good physios online and on social media who've done videos, and they actually sort of explain to you actually how to do it. So again, but it could be that you've actually got a tight pelvic floor. Yeah. Because vaginismus, as I talked about, is actually really underreported. People assume that sex is supposed to feel painful, or it will feel painful as we hit in the menopause, and actually it shouldn't. Sex should never be painful unless you've agreed to do BDSM or some kink. Well,
exactly, lovely. That's exactly the point, isn't it? Is, sort of, I think very often, particularly women, sort of they come to expect, if their periods have been painful and they've reported, my periods are painful, and they've been told, well, that's normal. You just have to expect that. Then it's sort of, oh, okay, so maybe other things should be painful. And that's absolutely not the case. Anything else you would like to add regarding pelvic health, my lovely?
No, I mean, basically we have a little health brochure, the Joe Devine health brochure. We created it in the NHS at our local hospital in Tunbridge Wells with a women's health physio and a consultant urogynecologist at their request. Contains slim sex toys that actually can help with, opening up the vagina to enable you to have your smear test or penetration. And it's also got clitoral stimulators as well to help women with orgasms, because having regular orgasms really helps your pelvic floor.
We're going to show that, aren't we, on the next video?
And it's got the dilators in it, and then we've got the pelvic floor exercises, and then obviously the Yes products there that we strongly recommend that people actually use.
Fabulous. So I'm throwing this at you, and I haven't asked you to. I'm really sorry. I haven't primed her for this. What would be your 3 top tips for women looking to maintain their pelvic health?
Okay, the first thing is to use a really good lubricant or vaginal moisturiser regularly. So if you are able to have some sort of sexual activity, even if it's not penetration, make sure it's a good lubricant. But use the vaginal moisturiser like Yes. There are things out on the high street which are really, really bad, things that GPs are prescribing. If your GP is going to prescribe something, just ask them what the ingredients are. So obviously avoid things that have got glycerin, glycols and parabens. The second thing I would say is get yourself a simple little slim vibrator, even like this. It's non-threatening. It's a silicone covered toy with got a little bullet, so that's great for clitoral stimulation, great to use on a partner. But it's a great way of actually getting back into, opening up the vagina if things have actually tightened down there. And also the third thing I would say, if you think things are quite tight down there, I would say, speak to your GP and ask them if they can prescribe you the local estrogen. Now, not everybody can have that. We know there are reasons why. But the majority of women can. The vast majority can. And actually, it will make such a difference. Don't be frightened or put off and think, oh, it's HRT and I can't use it.
It's very different.
Such a minimal amount of HRT, and it's not absorbed into the bloodstream. It's just absorbed into all of the vagina to replace that estrogen that has disappeared as we sort of go through menopause and beyond.
Definitely. And Sam showed you earlier the Vagifem applicator. There are also 2 vaginal estrogens that come as cream. So we've got Ovestin and an estriol cream, and there's also a little. I need to get one of these for Jane or something. There's a little ring which is called an e-string ring. So it gives you 90 days of local estrogen. That's inserted and sits in place for 90 days, gives you a very low dose. So there are options. So lovely. If people would like to come to the website, read some of the articles, get in touch, how can they contact?
So basically we are joedevine.com. And if you also could type in Joe Devine sex toys, and also you can give us a call. The number's on the website, and you can phone for a catalogue or one of the health brochures. Go to the website, the articles are there. There's actually an article called the health brochure article, and it's got me with a video showing various products as well, and all the people that we work with and how these products can help you. We've got a video of the dilators, and I've written extensively about vagina and vulval health because
Excellent.
I'm passionate about that.
Fabulous. So she is your vulva and vagina health expert, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, which would be fabulous. So, my lovelies, that is us for this one. We're going to do a second one now, all about sexual health and pleasure during and after menopause. And Sam will talk to us a lot more about all the lovely things that you can use and how you can look after yourselves. But for now, I'm so pleased we've done it. Thank you, my lovely, for coming along. And we hope it's helpful. You can always drop us, either of us, a message. So for me, it's menopausesupport.co.uk. You can find me on Instagram, Diane Danzibrink, and we've got the Facebook group, etc., etc. So we will be back with another one of these very soon. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't yet signed the petition, I would love you very much if you would. So it's